The sun rose slowly over the dusty plains of Zorath, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The rancher, Kale, had been awake for hours already, checking his herds of Tharok cattle grazing near the river. Life on the plains was quiet, predictable, and safe, or at least, it had always been. Kale liked it that way. The open land, the gentle hum of the river, and the wide horizon gave him a sense of freedom he could not find anywhere else. Kale's morning routine was interrupted by a distant cry. At first, he thought it was the wind rustling through the tall grass, but then he heard it again, sharp, urgent, and human. Kale frowned. There were very few travelers on these plains. Usually, only traders or wandering nomads passed through, and they were careful to avoid the wild edges where predators sometimes lurked. But this sound was different. It was a call for help. He mounted his horse and followed the noise, moving cautiously across the uneven ground. After half an hour, Kale reached a small ravine where the sun struck a clearing with unusual intensity, and there he saw him, a figure slumped against a rock, bleeding from his arm and clearly exhausted. He wore garments Kale had never seen before, colorful, woven with intricate patterns that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. The man's skin was a deep shade of copper, and his eyes, though weary, shone with a striking intelligence. Kale slowed his horse and dismounted. "Hey, are you all right?" he called out. The man looked up, squinting. I need help," he said, his voice raspy. "I am Tarek, leader of the Orivan tribe." Kale's brow furrowed. "Orivan? I've heard of them in old stories. They live beyond the northern cliffs, don't they? What are you doing here?" Tarek managed a weak smile. "A scout. I was attacked by wild beasts while crossing. I could not reach home. You found me in time." A scout, Kale's heart pounded. Wild beasts were rare, but not unheard of. He dismounted and approached slowly, noticing the crude bandages around Tarek's arm. "We need to get you back to my ranch," Kale said. "You can't stay here alone." Tarek nodded, wincing in pain as Kale helped him onto his horse. The journey back was slow, but Kale didn't mind. He had faced difficult days in his life, but he had never had to rescue a tribal leader before. It felt important, somehow. When they reached Kale's ranch, he led Tarek into a small guest room. He instructed his automated medkit to clean and dress the wound while he prepared some warm food. Tarek watched silently, his eyes scanning the ranch with quiet curiosity. "This place," Tarek murmured. "It is unlike any settlement I have seen. Machines, moving on their own, yet no one seems rushed or anxious. Your people, you have mastered balance." Kale shrugged. "It's just life on the plains. Hard work, simple rules. But it works." Tarek's lips curved into a faint smile. "You are kind. Stranger, most of my scouts would not have survived alone. You have saved me, Kale of the plains, and that is not forgotten among my people." Kale felt a mix of pride and unease. It was strange to hear gratitude from someone so far removed from his world. "Don't worry about that now," he said. "Rest. That's the important thing." Over the next few hours, Kale showed Tarek around the ranch. Tarek marveled at the grazing Tharok, the automated irrigation systems, and even the simple tools Kale used. "Your ways, they are clever. You make life easier, and yet nothing is taken for granted," Tarek observed. "Your people have strength, but also respect for life." Kale chuckled. "I guess we humans have a way of surviving anywhere. That's what matters." Donagam. Donagam. As the sun dipped behind the distant cliffs, Tarek spoke again. "Kale, I must warn you. My tribe, we face danger. Others, groups of nomads, strange creatures, they have been moving closer. We have been preparing, but now, without my guidance, my people may not be ready." Kale nodded. "You have my help, Tarek. If it's about protection or guidance, we'll figure it out together." Tarek looked at him with admiration and relief. "I did not expect this. Friendship from a stranger. You remind me why my people speak of humans with hope. You are different. The night fell gently, and the two men shared a simple meal by the hearth. Tarek spoke of the Oravan tribe, their history, and their belief in harmony with the land and its creatures. Kale listened, fascinated. It was unlike anything he had learned in his books. The tribe was intelligent, disciplined, and full of creativity. They had survived harsh environments for generations without the machines humans relied on except for what they created themselves from the land. By the end of the evening, Kale felt a bond forming between them. He realized that helping Tarek was not just an act of kindness, it might be the start of something larger, something that could bring two very different people, two very different ways of life, together. When Kale went to sleep that night, he could not shake the feeling that his life had changed. The plains were the same, the stars the same, but something inside him was different. He had rescued a tribal leader. And perhaps, in doing so, he had opened a door to a world he had never imagined. Meanwhile, in the quiet darkness outside the ranch, small figures moved between the trees, observing, cautious but curious. They were not dangerous, they never were, but Kale did not know it yet. His actions today had set events in motion that would reach far beyond the plains, far beyond the ranch. Tarek slept, recovering his strength, unaware that his people had noticed his absence. And Kale slept, unaware of the surprising gift the dawn would bring, one that would mark the beginning of an unexpected alliance and an adventure unlike any other. The morning sun rose over the plains, washing the ranch in golden light. Kale woke to the quiet rustle of the wind through the grass and the low murmur of the river. But today, something felt different. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, subtle but undeniable. He stepped outside and noticed movement at the edge of the property. 5 figures emerged from the tree line, each moving with confidence and grace. Kale's eyes widened. They were humans, yet unlike any he had ever seen. Their clothing was similar in style to Tarek's, bright and patterned with symbols that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Each carried tools or small devices, and their eyes glimmered with intelligence and curiosity. Kale raised his hand in greeting. "Good morning. Can I help you?" One of the 5, a tall woman with braided hair and a warm smile, stepped forward. "We are friends of Tarek," she said. Her voice was melodic and calm. "He sent us. He says you saved him, and now we come to help you." Kale felt a rush of surprise. "Help me? How exactly?" The woman's eyes twinkled. "There is more to your land than you realize. There are dangers, yes, but also opportunities. Tarek believes your people and ours can work together. We wish to show you our ways and learn from yours." Kale's mind raced. He had always believed in human ingenuity, but this was something entirely new. "I see. Well, you are welcome here. We have food, water, and shelter. Let's start with that." The 5 strangers nodded politely and followed Kale into the ranch. He introduced them to his automated systems, showed them the Tharok cattle, and explained the simple technologies that made life on the plains sustainable. The group watched with fascination, asking questions, and offering ideas of their own. One of them, a young man with a keen gaze, examined the irrigation system. "This is clever," he said. "With minor adjustments, you could increase yield without extra labor." He sketched a small diagram in the dust with a stick. Kale leaned over, studying it. It was simple, elegant, and effective. He realized that even the smallest improvement could make life easier. Another, a woman with silver-threaded hair, wandered among the cattle. She knelt beside a calf, her hands gentle as she checked its health. "Your care for these creatures is strong," she said. "It is clear you understand life, not just survival. That is rare." Kale felt a swell of pride. "Thank you. I do my best. These plains can be unforgiving, but you learn to respect them. Every life matters." The day passed quickly. The strangers shared stories of their tribe, their history, and the way they interacted with the land. They spoke of mountains, rivers, and forests far beyond the plains, each with its own creatures and challenges. Kale listened intently. Their knowledge was vast, and yet they were humble. In return, Kale shared his own experiences. He spoke of life on the plains, the routines of ranching, and the delicate balance between man, animal, and environment. The strangers nodded, fascinated by the simplicity and yet the depth of his life. By afternoon, Kale noticed a subtle change in the group. They began working together, not as strangers, but as a team. Some helped repair fences damaged by the recent storm, while others experimented with new planting techniques suggested by the young man. Even Tarek, now fully rested, joined them. His presence brought a sense of authority and calm. Kale realized then that Tarek's gift was not just their arrival, it was the promise of partnership. These 5 allies were not here to replace him or take control. They were here to combine their strengths with his, creating something stronger than either side alone. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, a gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers across the plains. Kale and his new companions gathered near the river, sharing a meal of roasted meat, fresh bread, and wild fruits. The conversation flowed easily. "I have seen much today," Kale said, looking around. "Your people are skilled, wise, and kind. But why now? Why come here? To my ranch?" "Of all places," the woman with braided hair smiled, "because Tarek believes in humans. He believes that when humans and Oravan work together, they can achieve what neither could alone. Your courage in saving him was the first step. That is why we are here." "Ron, we are here," Kale nodded slowly. He had always believed in human strength, but this was more than strength. It was cooperation, trust, and shared purpose. The kind of thing that could change not just one ranch, but an entire world. As the evening fell, Kale led the group to a vantage point overlooking the plains. The sky was a riot of colors, stars beginning to appear one by one. This land, it's quiet, but it's alive. Every creature, every plant has its place. "And now," he said, gesturing to the 5 strangers and Tarek, "it seems we do too." They stood in silence, each lost in thought. Then Tarek spoke. "Tomorrow, we begin training. There are threats approaching, small at first, but growing. You will need to learn how to defend your land and people, not with anger or violence, but with strategy, skill, and unity." Kale felt a thrill of excitement. This was no longer just about survival, it was about growth, learning, and proving that humans could stand strong, not just for themselves, but alongside allies. The 5 strangers nodded in agreement, their faces serious but determined. Each had a role to play, and each seemed ready for whatever challenge lay ahead. Kyle realized that this alliance was not a gift in the sense of material wealth. It was far greater. It was a gift of knowledge, strength, and trust. As they returned to the ranch, Kale felt a strange mixture of pride and anticipation. The day had begun with uncertainty and ended with hope. The plains seemed more alive than ever, as if they, too, understood the significance of the new bonds formed here. That night, Kale stood outside under the stars, looking at the small campfires of his new allies. He thought about the days ahead, the training, the planning, the growth. It would not be easy, but he knew that together, humans and Oravan could face any challenge. And deep down, Kale felt something he had never felt before. The quiet certainty that the plains were no longer just his home. They were a meeting place, a foundation for something larger, something that could change the course of many lives. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying the faint laughter and chatter of the 5 strangers. Kale smiled. He had saved a life yesterday. Today, he had gained 5 companions, and tomorrow would be the beginning of a journey that would test their courage, their intelligence, and their unity. The gift Tarek had spoken of was more valuable than any treasure. It was the beginning of an alliance that could stand against the unknown, a testament to human resilience and cooperation. Cale realized that sometimes the greatest strength was not in muscle or weapons, but in the choice to help, to trust, and to work together. As the night deepened, the plains remained calm, yet the stars overhead seemed to shine with unusual brilliance. Cale knew the world was bigger than he had imagined, and that the adventure ahead was just beginning. The rancher, the tribal leader, and his 5 new allies were ready to face it together. The morning sun broke over the horizon, spilling golden light across the plains. Cale woke early, as usual. But today, the ranch felt different. The 5 new allies were already moving about, preparing for the day's training. Tarek stood nearby, surveying the land with a keen eye. "Today begins your first lesson," Tarek said, his voice calm but firm. "Strength alone will not save this land. You must understand the environment, read the signs, and work together. Only then can you protect your people." Cale nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He had lived his life on the plains, surviving harsh weather, wild animals, and hard labor. But this was something new, a test of skill, observation, and teamwork that went beyond what he had ever done before. The 5 allies gathered around him, each attentive and ready. The tall woman with braided hair, Lyra, stepped forward. "What will we do first?" she asked. Tarek pointed toward a distant ridge. "There. You will find hidden markers I placed along the terrain. Each marker holds a challenge. Small puzzles, tasks, or obstacles. You must work together to find them and complete each one. Your goal is to reach the ridge by sunset, having solved all the challenges. Only then will you understand the first lesson: unity." Cale rubbed his hands together. "All right, let's do it." They began walking toward the ridge, the wind rustling through the grass as if cheering them on. Tarek followed at a distance, observing their movements silently. The first marker appeared near a shallow stream, a small wooden post with a carved symbol at the top. Cale knelt, examining it carefully. "It looks like a riddle," said Yoren, the young man with the keen gaze. He squinted at the carving. "The path is clear, but the heart must see. Count the stones to find the key." Cale looked around. The stream bed was lined with smooth stones, some larger than his fist, others small enough to slip through his fingers. "Count the stones?" he muttered. "All right. Let's start." The group worked together, counting stones in sections and verifying their totals. Each ally contributed, double-checking their work. Finally, Lyra pointed to a larger stone near the edge of the stream. "This one is different. It has a mark underneath." Cale lifted the stone, revealing a small, carved token, a piece of polished wood shaped like a star. "That must be the key," he said. They pocketed it and moved forward, energized by their first success. The next marker appeared near a cluster of rocks. Here, the challenge was physical. A narrow ledge required careful footing to cross safely. Cale went first, steadying himself on the rough stones. "Hold on," he called to the others. "Take it slow. Watch your step." One by one, the allies crossed, helping each other when the path became tricky. When Joran stumbled, Lyra reached out, steadying him with a gentle hand. Cale realized that Tarek was right. This exercise was not about individual skill, but about cooperation. Alone, anyone could fail. Together, they could succeed. By midday, they reached a small grove where the next marker waited. This one tested their intelligence. A puzzle of stones lay arranged on the ground, each etched with a symbol. Tarek's clue had been simple: arrange them to show the flow of life. Cale studied the stones. Flow of life. Maybe it's the path of the river, or the way the animals move. Lyra nodded. That makes sense. Let's try arranging them like the path of the stream we passed. They worked carefully, discussing each placement and adjusting the stones. After several attempts, the pattern clicked. A faint glow emanated from the stones, revealing another wooden token beneath. "Yes!" Lyra exclaimed. "We did it!" Cale felt a surge of pride. "This is amazing," he said. "We're really learning from each other." The group moved on, facing increasingly complex challenges. They navigated narrow passes, identified edible plants, and deciphered markings hidden among the grass. Each task required a different skill, and each task reinforced the importance of teamwork. As the sun dipped toward the western horizon, they reached the final challenge, a high ridge overlooking the plains. The climb was steep, the wind strong, but they moved carefully together. When Cale reached the top, he looked back and saw the plains stretching endlessly behind them, golden in the late sunlight. Tarek stepped forward, his eyes shining with approval. "You have completed the first test. You have shown observation, skill, and, most importantly, unity. This is the foundation of what is to come. Alone, any of you could have struggled. Together, you succeeded." Cale exhaled, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. He looked at the 5 allies, who were smiling despite their tiredness. "We did it," he said simply. Lyra smiled warmly. "Yes, we did. And we've learned something too. Your land, your plains, they teach patience and strength in ways we could not know before." Joran added, "And your approach, careful, thoughtful, always considering the next step, has shown us a different kind of power. It is not just the body that matters, but the mind and heart as well." Cale felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was more than training, it was a lesson in life, in leadership, and in what it meant to be human. They had faced challenges together and discovered strength not just in themselves, but in one another. As they rested on the ridge, Tarek shared stories of past trials faced by the Oravan tribe. Each story emphasized wisdom, observation, and cooperation. Cale listened intently, realizing that the skills they had practiced today would soon be needed in real life. "Tomorrow," Tarek said, "the lessons will grow more difficult. You will face challenges that test not just skill, but decision, courage, and adaptability. You must remember what you have learned today. Trust in each other, think carefully, and never underestimate the land." Cale nodded. "We're ready. Whatever comes, we will face it together." As night fell, they made camp near the ridge. The stars sparkled brightly, reflected in the calm waters of a nearby stream. Cale sat quietly, thinking about the day's successes and the bonds forming between humans and Oravan. The plains had given him strength for many years, but now, with allies by his side, he felt unstoppable. He looked at the 5 companions, each preparing for rest, and thought about the lessons learned: unity, patience, and respect. These were not just principles for survival, they were principles for life. He understood that the gift Tarek had sent yesterday was far greater than he had imagined. It was a gift of partnership, of shared purpose, and of hope. Cale realized that the journey ahead would test them all. Challenges were coming unseen, threats moving toward the plains, mysterious forces beyond their knowledge, but now they were ready. The training today had forged the first bond, a bond that could withstand trials and dangers alike. That night, as the wind whispered through the grass and the stars shone overhead, Cale felt a quiet certainty. The plains were alive with possibility, and he, Tarek, and their 5 allies were part of something greater than themselves. They were not just survivors, they were a team, a force capable of shaping the future of this land. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the first hints of the coming challenge stirred. But Cale and his companions were ready. Together, they would meet it not with fear, but with courage, intelligence, and the unbreakable bond of trust. The morning sun rose over the plains, casting long shadows across the grass. Cale woke early, the memory of the previous day's training still vivid in his mind. The climb, the puzzles, the teamwork they had succeeded together, and yet a sense of unease lingered. Today, Tarek had promised, would be different. As Cale stepped outside, the 5 allies were already awake, moving quietly around the ranch. Their presence had become natural, almost comforting, and he realized how quickly they had become part of his daily life. Lyra noticed him and smiled. "Good morning, Kale. Are you ready?" Kale nodded. "I think so. But what exactly is today's lesson?" Tarek appeared, his expression serious. "Today, you will face your first real threat. It is not a simple puzzle, nor a test of strength alone. You must use everything you learned yesterday: unity, observation, patience, and intelligence. Are you prepared to face the unknown?" Kale glanced at the 5 allies. Each met his gaze with determination. "We're ready," he said. They left the ranch together, moving toward the northern edge of the plains. The land here was wilder, less tamed, with rocky outcroppings and patches of dense grass. Kale felt a thrill of excitement mixed with caution. He had faced danger before, but this was different. It was organized, deliberate, and unpredictable. After several hours of careful walking, Tarek stopped and signaled for the group to hide behind a cluster of boulders. From their vantage point, they could see movement in the distance. A small pack of wild creatures, larger than any Kale had encountered before, prowled near the riverbank. They were sleek, dark, and agile, moving as a team with an intelligence that suggested more than instinct. "These are not ordinary predators," Tarek said quietly. "They are clever, coordinated. You cannot simply confront them. You must observe, plan, and act together." Kale nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. "So, what's the plan?" Tarek gestured to the allies. "Use your strengths. Lyra, Joran, and Mara, observe their movements and predict their path. Kale and I will create a diversion, but carefully. And Sela, you will prepare the terrain so that we can guide them safely away from your livestock." The team moved into position. Lyra's sharp eyes tracked the creatures, noting patterns in their movements. Joran sketched their path in the dust, identifying points where they might hesitate or turn. Mara whispered to Kale, "They seem to communicate with each other. If we separate them, we can control their direction." Kale's heart raced. This was no training exercise, it was real. The creatures were intelligent, faster than anything he had faced, and unpredictable. Yet, he felt a strange calm. He had his allies, and together they could handle this. Tarek stepped out from behind the boulders, waving a piece of cloth to draw the creatures' attention. They noticed him immediately, growling and moving cautiously. Kale followed, guiding them toward a narrow canyon that Tarek had identified earlier. The allies worked in perfect harmony, predicting the creatures' movements and adjusting their strategy as needed. Sela had prepared small barriers using rocks and fallen branches, creating a path that would naturally guide the creatures away from the ranch. Lyra shouted observations. Joran calculated distances, and Mara stayed alert for any sudden changes. Every movement was precise, every decision deliberate. The creatures moved faster than expected, but the team's coordination kept them ahead. Kale felt a rush of exhilaration. This was the ultimate test of what they had learned. Alone, any of them could have failed. Together, they were unstoppable. After several tense minutes, the creatures reached the canyon. The path Sela had prepared narrowed their movement, and Tarek's diversion ensured they did not panic. The pack followed the intended route, eventually disappearing from sight. The threat had passed, controlled, managed, and without harm to the ranch or the animals. KL exhaled deeply, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. "We did it," he said, looking at the group. "We really did it." Lyra smiled. "Yes, and we have learned something today. Strength is important, but observation, patience, and cooperation can be stronger." Tarek nodded. "This is the lesson I wanted you to understand. Every challenge you will face in the future will require these qualities. Remember this day. Remember how you worked together. That is what will protect your land and your people." As they returned to the ranch, Kale noticed a change in himself. He felt more confident, more capable. The plains were still wild and unpredictable, But now he understood that intelligence, unity, and careful observation could overcome any threat. Back at the ranch, the allies shared their thoughts. Mara suggested improvements to the ranch's layout to make it safer in case of future threats. Joran offered designs for simple alarms and signaling devices. Lyra observed the livestock, noting ways to make their enclosures more secure without causing stress to the animals. Kale listened, impressed by their ideas. "You've turned a dangerous day into a chance to improve everything. I couldn't have done this alone." Tarek placed a hand on Kale's shoulder. "Humans have always been remarkable because of their adaptability. You take knowledge, apply it, and grow stronger. That is what I hope to show you." The day ended with a quiet celebration. The team gathered near the river, enjoying a simple meal and sharing stories. They laughed about small mistakes, marveled at the creature's cleverness, and reflected on the lessons learned. Kale felt a sense of camaraderie he had never experienced before. These were not just allies, they were partners, friends, and a team capable of facing whatever the plains could throw at them. As night fell, Kale stood alone for a moment, looking up at the stars. The plains stretched endlessly before him, vast and full of potential. The creatures had been clever, yes, but the human spirit, combined with the skills of the Oravan allies, had been stronger. He realized then that the first true test was not about fighting, it was about thinking, observing, and working together. Strength alone could not solve every problem. Intelligence, patience, and trust were equally important. Somewhere in the distance, Kale could hear the faint rustle of the wind through the grass, carrying with it the promise of future challenges. But he was ready. Tarek and the 5 allies had proven that cooperation could overcome almost anything. Kale smiled. "Tomorrow," he whispered to himself, "we will be even stronger." And as the campfires flickered under the stars, a quiet understanding settled over the group. They had faced the first real threat together and survived. But this was only the beginning. The plains held more mysteries, more dangers, and more lessons. And Kale, Tarek, and their 5 allies were prepared to face them together. The gift of trust, partnership, and courage had proven its worth. The plains were alive. And now, so was their strength. The plains were calm in the early morning, but the air held a quiet tension. Kale woke before sunrise, listening to the soft murmur of the river and the rustling grass. Today, Tarek had said, would be the final test, a challenge that would show if the humans and Oravan allies were truly ready to face the unknown. Kale stepped outside, noticing the 5 companions already preparing. Their movements were precise, efficient, and calm. Over the past days, they had become more than allies. They were a team. Each had learned from Kale, and Kale had learned from them. Together, they had solved riddles, faced creatures, and navigated the wild plains. Today, everything they had learned would be tested. Tarek emerged from the shadow of the cliffs, his face serious. Today's challenge is not a simple puzzle. It is a combination of what you have learned: observation, unity, intelligence, and courage. A rare storm is approaching, and with it, dangers that can disrupt your land and threaten your animals. You must act wisely to protect the ranch and your people. Kale nodded. He had experienced storms before, but this one was different. Tarek's words carried authority. This was not just weather, it was a test of strategy and teamwork. The group gathered their supplies and moved toward the high plateau where Tarek had predicted the storm would hit hardest. The sky darkened with clouds, a rolling mix of gray and blue, and the wind began to pick up. The tall grasses bent under its pressure, and the distant cliffs seemed to shimmer under the morning light. Lyra glanced at Kale. "We need to prepare. The animals, the crops, and even the equipment, everything could be damaged if we do not act quickly." Kale agreed. "Let's divide tasks. Joran and Mara, help me secure the livestock. Lyra and Sela, focus on the crops and tools. Tarek will coordinate from the ridge and give directions based on the storm's movement." The group worked efficiently, each member applying what they had learned. The livestock were moved to safer areas, pens reinforced, and equipment tied down. Lyra used clever barriers to prevent erosion near the crops, while Sela strengthened fences and cleared potential hazards. Yorin and Mara guided the animals calmly, their voices steady and reassuring. Kale watched their movements, feeling a deep sense of pride. These 5 allies, strangers just days ago, had become an extension of his own instincts and experience. Together, they were a force far greater than he could have imagined. The storm arrived with sudden intensity. Winds howled across the plains, carrying dust and debris. Thunder rumbled in the distance, followed by flashes of lightning. Kyle could feel the raw power of nature pressing down on them, but he remained focused. "Stay calm," he shouted over the roar of the wind. "Move carefully. Stick together." The team responded flawlessly. They guided the livestock into secure areas, checked that no animal was missing, and reinforced every barrier. Tarek, positioned on the ridge, gave precise instructions based on observations no one else could make. Suddenly, a small rock slide began on a nearby slope. Kale acted immediately, signaling Sila to redirect the animals and Lyra to create a safe path for them. The allies moved quickly, combining strength and intelligence. Stones fell, but no one was hurt, and the livestock remained safe. As the storm raged on, Kale realized that this was more than just a test of survival, it was a test of leadership. Each ally had grown in confidence and skill. Each had contributed ideas and actions that ensured their safety. Together, they were learning not just to endure challenges, but to master them. By late afternoon, the storm began to pass. The clouds broke, revealing sunlight reflecting on wet grass. The plains smelled of fresh rain and earth. Kale looked around, surveying the ranch and the 5 allies. Everything had survived. The storm, livestock, crops, and equipment were intact. The teamwork had worked. Tarek approached, smiling. "You have done well." This storm was not just a natural event, it was a lesson. You planned, adapted, and worked together. You have proven that humans, when combined with allies who trust and cooperate, can face any challenge. Kale felt a surge of pride. "We did it. Together. I couldn't have done it alone." Lyra smiled. "You guided us well, Kale. And we learned from you too. Your experience, patience, and calm thinking kept us focused." Yorin added, "This proves what Tarek said. Unity and intelligence can be stronger than force alone." Mara nodded. "Every step, every choice mattered. That is what made this possible." "Inway." Kale looked at each ally in turn. "I have always believed humans can achieve anything. But now I see. When we work with others, listen, trust, and learn from each other, we can do even more. This is the real gift." Tarek placed a hand on Kale's shoulder. "Yes. You have learned the greatest lesson of all. Strength is important, but wisdom, cooperation, and courage define true power. Your alliance is now unbreakable." The group returned to the ranch as the sun dipped below the horizon. The plains glowed in soft amber light, and a sense of calm returned. Kale walked among the livestock, checking each pen, feeling a deep connection not just to the land, but to the companions who had become part of his life. That evening, they gathered around a fire. Tarek told stories of past generations of the Oravan tribe, sharing wisdom about survival, leadership, and the bonds that keep people strong. The 5 allies added their own experiences, sharing insights they had gained from Kale and the plains. Kale listened, feeling a sense of completeness. He had started this journey as a lone rancher. Guided by his own instincts, he had rescued a tribal leader and, in return, received the gift of friendship, wisdom, and partnership. The plains had tested him, but now they were a place of unity, strength, and hope. As night settled, Kale looked at the stars reflecting in the river. The plains seemed endless, but now they were not empty. They were alive with promise, with allies by his side, and with lessons learned that would last a lifetime. Lyra spoke softly. "The storm was only the beginning. There will be other challenges, other tests. But now, we are ready." Together. Kale nodded. Yes, together. Tarek placed a hand on Kale's shoulder once more. You have proven the spirit of humanity, not just strength, but courage, wisdom, and the ability to unite with others. Remember this. Teach it. Live it. That is how your people will thrive, and how our alliance will endure. Kale smiled. He realized the plains had given him much more than he expected. Not just survival, but purpose, friendship, and a vision of the future. The humans and Oravan allies were no longer separate. They were a team capable of facing whatever lay ahead. As the fire burned low, the group sat in quiet reflection. The stars shone brightly above, a reminder that the world was vast and full of possibilities. Kyle understood now that the true adventure was only beginning. With unity, intelligence, and courage, humans could not just survive, they could thrive, shape their world, and inspire hope. The plains, once silent and solitary, were alive with life, laughter, and shared purpose. Kale, Tarek, and their 5 allies had faced the storm, conquered the challenge, and forged an alliance that would endure for years to come. And as the night deepened, Kale whispered to himself, "This is what it means to be human. To work together, to learn, to grow, and to rise stronger than ever." The plains stretched endlessly, but Kale knew he would never walk them alone again.